Hi, welcome to today's lesson, part two, solving with percents, finding missing percents, missing whole numbers, and missing part numbers. Now in the first lesson, we kind of did everything linearly. We made equations and then solved the equations. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to something we did many weeks ago, and we're going to set them up in proportions. Now I like this method because it works every time. You know me, I'm a big fan of if it works every time, use that. I mean, you don't have to reinvent it, you don't have to rediscover it, you don't have to say, well, in this situation this will work better than that one. Now there are times when, hey, for speed, one method might be faster than another, and if you really have your control, you can do it any way you like. But I'm a big fan of, let's just get one method that we can use every time, and you'll see it can get more. It'll tie in also with what we're going to be doing in the next two lessons when we start talking about percent change and markups and discounts, and really bringing some of this to things you'll be using in your everyday life. I always know students love to ask me that, when am I going to use this in my everyday life? This is stuff that's really, everybody uses it because it's very consumer related. You buy something, a lot of what we're doing mathematically went into either what you bought it for, or what you're going to sell it for, or what it's worth, or all those things. That there's always things trying to tell you what a great deal you got, or did you get a good deal, or all those kind of ideas. And I find that if you have this math in your back pocket, you'll do a much better out in the real world. Okay. There's a good old saying that says, if you watch your pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. Which is to say, if you're always paying attention to the little things, you'll be financially much better off. And I can assure you that that is the truth, because you really want to live, as little debt as possible, but calculated debt. That's one of the things that a lot of people forget about. It's not just avoid debt, like, hey, just don't do it. It's be smart about it. Okay, and there's ways to be smart about what you buy. There's ways to be smart about all those sort of things, and we'll talk a lot about that in the next couple of lessons. So this may be the faster way and the simpler way to solve the problems that we were doing in the last lesson. So we have this one here. It says, what percent of 360 is 54? Now, so we're looking for the percent. If you remember back to the last one, we would have just said, okay, well, percent would be X, and times 360 would be 54, and then you would try to figure that out. But regardless of what you're looking for, you can use the following proportion, and we like proportions. There's all kinds of applications. We'll see something about that also in a few weeks when we talk about scale factor. Okay, proportional reasoning is huge. It comes up all the time. You want to make something from a model, you want to alter a recipe to make more or less, or there's so many applications of it. Okay, and that's what this proportion is telling us. We take the part number, how much did we have at the end, divide that by the whole number. Okay, how much did we start with? Well, that's equal to the part percent over the whole percent. And you should know that a whole percent is always 100, right? If you have 100%, you got all the questions right on the test. You got 100%, you got the whole value of whatever it is. And this proportion works every single time, as long as you give me two of these three numbers. So it has four numbers in it, but one of them never changes. One of them is always 100. So as long as you give me two of these other three, I can figure out what the fourth one is. So it's up to me to identify the parts. Which number is which? Now you have to sometimes be careful, because there's times when maybe the part number is bigger than the whole, because you had something that's more than 100%. It's possible. It's going to come up. We're going to see it in the very next set of lessons. Okay, but just think about what the numbers represent. So if 360 we ended equals 54. So what it equals is always going to be my part. So that's my part number right there, 54. That means 360 has to be my whole number. Well, the part percent, that's what percent. See, it's right there, what percent. That's what we're trying to figure out. So and then a whole percent again is always 100. So now I can plug them in. 54 over 360 is what over 100? And then we solve it just like we solve a proportion. We cross multiply from denominator up to numerator. So 100 times 54 is 5400. 360 times x is 360x. Divide both sides by 360, and x is 15%. The nice thing here is we don't end up with a decimal that we then have to convert to a percentage like we did in the last lesson. We automatically end with a percent because we already dealt with the 100. So we don't have to redesign it and worry about it after we're done. As soon as we get to the end, we get a number 15. That 15 is 15%. So I could say 15% so 15% of 360 is 54. I can plug it in and read it and it will sound right. 15% of 360 is 54. Well, 10% would be 36. 5% would be 18. 18 and 36, sure enough, is 54. Okay, so I like this one because it works every time, and it is, I think, for the most part, kind of easy to assemble because you can identify the parts, you know, whether you're talking about the whole number or the part number. The whole percent never changes. Do you have and if you have the percent, all you have to figure out is what's my other number? Is it the whole number or the part number? Which leads me to the last example here. It says, find what is 35% of 60. Now we saw in the last lesson, what we would do is we would just change that percent into a decimal and multiply, because of means multiply, and we can just change the percent. Now that may be the faster way for you there for this particular type of problem, but I want to set it up again using a proportion so we can see that this is an always works kind of a setup. And this one really has an easy setup. Is over of equals percent over 100. Because what it is, that's the part number, of was the whole number, percent over 100. So I just plug those numbers in, really easy. What is? Well, what is the is, so is an x. 35 is got the percent sign, so it goes over 100. Of is 60. And again, quick little cross multiply, boom, boom. 35 times 60 is 2100. 100 times x is 100x, divide by 100, and x equals 21. So 21 is 35% of 60. So again, these are basically the same setup. This one is kind of a little more specific to the way that most people would ask the question, what percent is something, or this is what percent of, because all the numbers that are right there in front of you, you can really tell what's the whole, what's the part number. That's really the only thing you got to distinguish when utilizing this formula, right? The percent is either going to be given to you or it's going to be asked of you. So it's either going to be the x or they're going to give you the number straight out. The whole percent's always going to be 100. And that leaves you with, well, what's my other values? Do I know the part and the whole, or do I know just the part or the whole? And you have to figure out which one of those things you do have. Once you have that, plug it in, quick little cross multiply, and you're done. Okay, and we're going to see this again in the next two lessons, this proportional stuff, because when we start talking about markups and discounts, which is the very next set of lessons, and percentage of change, okay, when we want to start talking about how much something has changed percent-wise, then we're going to come back to this exact same set of proportions, and we're going to do the same thing. We're really going to kind of tie into this one, I think, a little bit more, but they're really very close. And I think sometimes it's just easy when you hear the question, you go, I know what number goes where. And then once you know that, you just you solve your proportions, and you're good to go with whatever it is that you're trying to find. Okay, so we saw the long way when we wrote them all out, and then we're always dividing by something and figuring that out, or plug it into the proportion. It's the same steps every time, cross multiply and divide. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. I know this one's a little short, which is good because it's pretty straightforward, and it ties in with the last one, so I'm almost calling this a part 2. When I step forward, you'll see one of my darling three little kittens again. See her in her little tree there, and I will see you again in class.